Hello guys, welcome to the next project in my game asset tutorial series. This one is going to introduce you to 3D modular building. I'm going to create a very simple red brick, just a very plain building. I've made some props before, made a little gravestone, made the oil barrel, and I'll do more props again in future, but I want to introduce you to the idea of modular building. I've already put out an introduction video on how modular 3D design works, but that didn't really get into the nitty-gritty of it. So here in this project, we're going to actually create a little project. Now, the intention of this is not to make a AAA quality game asset. Again, these tutorials are aimed at beginners. What we're going to end up with is a very simple building, just with very simple textures on it. It's more to explain the key concepts of modular design. There are more complex modular tutorials out there, so if you like this one, absolutely go check those out. In the previous video, I linked to Tim Simpson's work, who does excellent work with trim sheets, in particular making the textures for AAA environmental assets. So if you like this wee series I'm doing and you want to take it just that little step further, maybe down the line I will do more videos of my own, but as of this going out live, I would advise, if you want to get your skills better, finish this tutorial, then look elsewhere. There are some brilliant tutorials out there and I will link to some of them in the description below. So just to show you a little bit of what we're actually going to create today, this was the building that was shown in the previous introduction video. It's a very simple little modular red brick building. Not much in the way of architectural design here, but just made up of about a dozen or so little pieces. And in this tutorial, I'm going to try and recreate some of these pieces for you to see how they were made. And then I'll not show every single thing, but I'll show you enough that you should be able to then run with it and you'll be able to make your own pieces and maybe make up your own stuff. So what I'm also going to do for this one, I'm just going to use this same little texture trim sheet. Now, this is not great by any means, but it will do for now. Just to save me from making another better one, this is just one I very quickly cobbled together. Just to recap, what exactly is this? This is what we would call a trim sheet, and it's kind of like a tiling texture, but whereas a tiling texture like grass or concrete would just be one solid tile that can be repeated both horizontally and vertically, the key with the trim sheet is that it runs horizontally. So this will tile from left to right horizontally. This little bit of concrete will tile from left to right horizontally. And then we also have these other sections here just for smaller discrete bits, such as these paving stones and this tarmac, which we can use for the roof and stuff like that. So it's, as I say, it's not the best, it's not AAA quality texturing we're going for here. We're just trying to explain the concepts. My students, you will have this texture available on Canvas. Everyone else, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you want this texture, I can make it available. It's not too hard to make something similar. You can even make a more complicated texture and don't include these parts down here. Maybe add a few other strips of other bits of decoration, other types of materials if you want. As we get through the tutorial, you'll see how this works, and it's quite easy to adapt into something else. So let's get stuck into it. Let's go to 3D Studio Max. The important thing to remember here is that we do want to have a texture pre-made that we kind of have in the back of our minds. How are we going to make our models around this? So I know that I'm going to make a red brick texture, and my textures that exist is 4 rows of bricks, and I have this concrete here. They're going to be my 2 main materials. So if I go back here, you can see my 2 main materials are the concrete and the red brick. Again, very plain, not very exciting, but it will help explain the concept quite well. So I will close this down. I will leave this open. We can flick back to it. But let's just get started here. So this wee video is first, and I'm just going to worry about the initial setup. I don't want this dragging on too long. I'll just worry about the initial setup of what we're going to do here. So first of all, I want to set up my units and my grid correctly. So I want to go to Tools, Grids and Snaps, and Grid and Snap Settings. Remember, if we're making a building and it's going to go in a game engine, it has to be approximately the correct size, because Our character in game is going to be approximately the size of a human, so maybe 1.7 meters tall. That means any doors they have to go through have to be big enough that they fit through, but also not too big that our character looks like they're far too small for the environment. If we're playing as a soldier in Call of Duty, they shouldn't be the height of a child, something like that. Also, it affects things like physics as well. If we have an object falling through space, say it falls off the top of a building, objects have a certain amount of gravity, they accelerate over distance. So if that distance is scaled wrong, a building that's meant to be 100 meters tall could end up only being 1 meter tall, and therefore those physics collisions and physics objects dropping or jumping or flying or whatever, they won't work correctly because the scale's wrong. So it's really, really important when we're doing our 3D models. Although, yes, we can rescale stuff in Unreal, it's better to get it right first time. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up our grid here. You saw me, I just go to Tools and Snaps, or Grid and Snap, sorry. And then I'll come over to the Home Grid. What I want to do is I want to make a grid spacing of every 1 meter. So 100 centimeters. And perspective grid lines extent, we will say 20, and that will give us a 20 meter grid, or 20 by 20 grid. Okay, there we go. We also want to make sure these units are set up correctly. I work for my students to be working in the Unreal Engine, and Unreal works in centimeters. So what we'll do as well is we're just going to customize unit setup. I'll set our metric to centimeters and system unit setup also to centimeters. Just click on this and it can be whatever you want. I previously trained as an architect, believe it or not, and I'm used to working in millimeters. So sometimes I would actually work in millimeters, especially if I was making just small props and things. But for you guys, I'm going to keep this in centimeters, just so it'll work better with Unreal. So there we go, we've got a wee grid set up now. Let's actually, this isn't necessary, but it might help you visualize stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a box. And I'm going to make this box 500 by 500 by 500 by 500 by 500. Excuse me. And I'm going to split this into segments of 5 by 5 by 5. If I just hit F4, I can see my little grid lines here when I select this. As I should be able to. I'll just change the color of this object as well, so something will show up a bit better on screen. And maybe works better usually. There we go. F4. There we are. So F4 just toggles on and off these grids. So what I want to do is 5 segments by 5 segments by 5 segments. And what this will give me is each little square here is exactly 1 meter by 1 meter. Now, I'm going to extract these and take each little piece that I want. So I can take a corner piece, I can take a mid piece or whatever, just as a little starting piece. 1 meter is actually very small for this. More likely we would use something like a 2 meter chunk, because then one chunk will be taller than a human. It's much easier to make corridors and things that way. But again, the mathematics might just be a little bit easier to work with for this first initial version, just if we work in smaller numbers. So if I think to myself, how tall is a building? Average floor height of one building is going to be about 3 meters. Average door height is going to be about 2 meters, and window height could be 1 meter or smaller. Say we have a 2-story building then with a flat roof, that would be about 6 meters. And as we go up and up, we'll go up in multiples of 3 meters and stuff. So what that means is if I just convert this to an editable poly, my door is going to be about this size. Window might be that size or a little bit smaller. A whole floor of the building will be, say, the bottom 3 meters, or 3 meters in the middle, 3 meters at the top, whatever it may be. So working on meters is actually kind of nice because it's easy to kind of visualize that and work out how big it is. So what I'm going to do, let's look back at our building here. the first thing I will build is just a plain little section of wall that has nothing else on it, just a plain bit of brick wall, a 1 meter by 1 meter section of brick wall. So what I will do is I'll just select one of these segments now. I could just go and make a plain 1 meter by 1 meter, but I might as well just take one of these little sections here. So I take you, and I'm going to move you over. Hold shift just to create a clone of you. Clone the object, and I'll just call this one brick wall. Actually, what's a good name? I do actually want to get a nice naming convention here, so I'll call this wall underscore brick. There we go. Now I have snaps on here, so when I cloned that, it went way off out in the distance. So I just go top level to deselect this, select you again, and what I will do is, actually what I'll do, I'll just shift you over here, shift you over here a little bit, and just center this guy back on the origin. Now, here's a little thing to note. Because I cloned this guy from this cube and moved him way out here, his pivot point is still actually where the cube was. And that's no good. We want the pivot point to be back on this little guy. So I'm just going to go into my hierarchy tab here, my third tab. I'm going to hit Effect Pivot Only. And for now, I'll just hit Center the Object. And that does that. And now I can zoom in. I actually want this to be down on the very bottom left corner. I'm going to put the pivot of every object on the bottom left corner. And that will let them have me a point of reference I can snap all my separate pieces together to. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn on my snaps toggle. I'm going to right click this and make sure that vertex is checked so that my snaps will actually snap to vertexes, my objects. And I'm going to turn off grid because grid can actually get kind of annoying. I'm also just going to check, is my OBS actually showing the right thing? Yes, it is. Okay, cool. So again, Effect Pivot Only, and we're just going to move this pivot and snap it down onto that bottom left. Okay, we'll turn off Effect Pivot Only so that we can move our whole object again. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to move this guy back to the origin point. And to do that, I'm just going to right click these little arrows here, clickety, clickety, click, right click each time, and now bottom left corner is now located on the origin point. Brilliant. So looking back at our little texture here, if I can find it, please forgive my really slow computer. There we go. Excuse me. We have 4 lines of brick here. 4 rows, sorry. And I know that a brick is about 25 centimeters tall. Sorry, no, it's not. That's completely right. A brick is 7.5 centimeters tall. And my object here, I'm going to split this into 4. In fact, I'll do that now. Let me just split this. I'm going to go to Edge Mode. I'm going to select these 2 edges. And I'm going to connect this. Click the little settings button here. I'm going to connect it into 3 times to give me 4 segments. Hit OK. So that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4 vertical segments. If my whole square is 1 meter tall, that means each segment is 25 centimeters tall. And each of my pieces that I make is going to be 1 meter by 1 meter, or a multiple of that, maybe 2 meters by 2 meters, whatever. But subdivided in that, there are going to be 25 centimeter subdivisions. And now if I bring back what I was going to say here, I know that I've got 4 brick width here. I know just from experience and doing the research that a brick is about 75 millimeters tall, which means that 2 bricks is about 15 centimeters, 4 bricks is about 30 centimeters. So if I squeeze those bricks along here, it's going to be just not quite right, 25 centimeters to 30 centimeters. We're squishing it in a wee bit, but it'll be close enough that it looks okay. So what this effectively means is that each one of these strips is going to have 4 bricks in it. So why don't we actually just apply those bricks now? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a material. and I'm going to apply it to this. I'm in the compact mode editor. If it looks different, you might be in the slate editor. I like to work just in the compact one, just when I'm doing quick materials. And we'll call this red brick material. And what I want to check is this little button here, show shaded material in viewport, just so that it will actually be visible here as we're modeling. And what I want to do is I want to set the diffuse. I want to click the little button beside it, which says none. And this will let me actually choose what that material is. I'll click bitmap. And now I just need to find that. Let me see, quick access. It should be in here. Render 1, building trim sheet 2D, file location. There we are, trim sheet 2D. Put that in there. And it has applied that material, but because we haven't put an unwrap on yet, it's not showing up just as we like. So what we're going to do is we are going to add a UV unwrap modifier to this. So if we scroll down here, unwrap UVW, and I'll open my UV editor. And here is my, if I turn off that checker pattern, here is my little modular piece on this texture. Now, it'd be useful if I can actually see the texture here to know what I'm working with. So in order to do that, if I come up to this little drop-down box here, oh, my text is very, very small here. I'm working on a 4K screen, and some things don't really work very well on a 4K screen in 3ds Max. Some things are still not optimized, so it's going to be very difficult to see this. But in this little drop-down box here, if you choose the option that says pick texture, it will let you load that. So again, bitmap, and I'm just going to navigate to the same place I was in before and pick my texture. And if I click this again, the one that did show the wee checker to begin with, just make sure that's activated. There we can see our texture is visible. Now it's not quite as bright as it should be. We can bring up options and change the brightness. There we go. But because it's difficult enough to see my little tiles here, or my little polygons, I'm just going to leave that where it was at about 0.5. We just really need to be able to eyeball onto those bricks. It'll not affect the actual texture on our model, it's just what we see here in the UV window. So, okay, if I select these 4 polys and I move them around, you can see what happens. It's going to apply them to that and apply whatever part of the texture or little polygon is on. That's what it's going to be. So here's what I want to do. I actually want to break these 4 apart. And to do that, I'm just going to select this one, hit the little break icon here, hit this one, hit the little break icon. Because these 2 aren't selected anyway, they'll be broke as well. So now I can actually move these separately. But what I want to do, if I just move them over to a clear spot here, I want to actually stack them all on top of each other. They're all going to be brick, so I'm just going to stack them on top of each other. And I'll zoom in and just try and get them as close as I can. If we zoom way, way, way in, they're never going to be exactly perfect, but as long as they are close, it is grand. And move all 4 of them, line them up. And you can see now that all 4 of them are sharing the same piece of texture, but not the piece I want, and it's way too big. So remember, this is a 1 meter by 1 meter piece. So these bricks are going to be big, massive bricks. We don't want that. So we want to scale them down to the right size. I'm just going to stretch this up. I just bring it wide enough that it fills up that. There we go. So you see it's just a wee bit narrower than the whole width of the whole thing. If we were to stretch this wide to match the whole thing, our bricks would actually be too small. 1 meter wide, that would give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 whole bricks. Our bricks should be far too small. A brick is about 220 millimeters wide, 22.5 centimeters wide. So we should really only have 4 in a whole width if we're keeping it real size. But again, because it is squished a wee bit, we can get away with about 5, and that's okay. So let me see. Let me just match it back to what it was. And what we will do is we will just stretch it to line up here roughly so that there's tile. Actually, do you know what? It's tiling from left to right. Yeah, do you know what? Just to make sure the tile works, we will bring it right to the very left. The bricks are going to be a bit too small, but again, blind man on a galloping horse won't notice, and we'll say nothing. We'll just ignore it, and hopefully he will too. And it just means that this tile from left to right will match up correctly. I'm looking at it, it doesn't look too bad there. Yeah, we'll ignore it and we'll say no. And there we have, and now we'll just zoom in here to make sure that we have a little bit of padding here. We see our mortar in there. It's a wee bit tight here on this one, so we'll select you, and maybe get a little look at you. We can maybe bring you up a little bit. Just there. And that's grand. That'll do. That'll do nicely. As I say, this texture is not perfect. It's not ideal. It's not great for AAA. The size is a little bit off here. If you were wanting to make proper AAA textures, you would want to be creating them in Substance Designer, creating nice normals in ZBrush, things like that. All I did for this, I just took some photos off Google. I just made them tile left to right, and I never even thought about the scale when I was making it. I did it really fast. If I was to remake this again, I would actually widen it a little bit so that there weren't so many tiles here, and when they tiled left to right, there were only about 4 or 5, just to make it closer to real world scale. So just be aware of that as well. The size that things should be when you're making them, when you're making your textures, but it will not really matter too much here. I'm just being a little bit, I'm looking back at myself and being a little bit harsh on myself, but that will do. There we have our very first piece, and if I close that and I go back to top level and deselect everything, we can maybe move this a little bit, give it a wee bit more padding as well, but it's not looking too bad. If I take this piece of brick wall, get my move tool, and I hold the shift key just to create a duplicate of it, and I've got my snaps still activated, I can snap from one corner to another, and you can see that those tile together quite well. We can be a wee bit more refined and just see that UVs need moved ever so slightly there, but that's not too bad. And there we have our first modular piece, and we've broken up the UVs, and it works quite nice. So really, I'm going to stop this video here, and in part 2 we will look at more complex pieces like the corner pieces, the window pieces and stuff like that. But really, every piece we're going to do is going to be that same thing. We're going to split it horizontally, or as we need to, maybe vertically in some cases, and then just move the UVs over the brick, over the concrete. We'll be repeating this process just a wee bit more complicated for every piece going forward. But that's our first part of the modular kit right there. I'll delete this one. We don't really need it. Remember what we want to do. We can maybe make a little test building off to the side here, but for taking this into Unreal, we only want one of each piece that we'll take into Unreal, and then we'll assemble our buildings in Unreal itself. So, okay, we will leave that video there. What's that, 25 minutes? That's long enough, I think. And I will see you for part 2 very, very shortly. Thank you, guys. If you have any questions, of course, please just ask down below.